When a park takes out a coaster, all we can hope for is a good replacement. We've seen Six Flags swing their axe like crazy over the last few months, and hopefully, good things are on the horizon. It seems like, more often than not, these coasters are replaced with new coasters. Sometimes the new coaster is worse. More often, it's kind of a lateral move. But other times, you end up thanking the coaster gods for that change. Today, let's focus on those. These are North America's best coaster replacements. A few ground rules to follow here. This is just North America, so if you have a good replacement in Europe or Asia or Australia, let me know in the comments below. I'm also not considering coasters that were altered, so no RMC conversions. If I had those, it would make up most of the list. Also, no Phantom's Revenge, and no stand-up to Flores conversions. It has to be a totally new coaster, and it has to have taken up at least some of the land the last coaster left behind. Let's start with 5 honorable mentions, where the gap between the old and new wasn't quite big enough for the top 15. Grease Lightning and Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. This Schwarzkopf shuttle loop found its way to the park in 2003, sitting right along the road, operating all the way until the park shut down in 2009. It sat there with the park, the coaster, and the park alike awaiting its fate, and when Ed Hart saved the park in 2014, it was taken out and replaced with the first ever Chance Rides Hyper GTX, Lightning Run. This is an amazing coaster, easy top 50 for me, but the old shuttle loops were pretty great also, so not quite a big enough upgrade to make my list. Goliath and Quantum Accelerator at Six Flags New England. We all know Goliath was ruined by the new trains after it got moved to Magic Mountain, and I mean ruined to the point where it was one of the worst coasters ever. We were hoping for a big-time throw replacement and got Quantum Accelerator, an Intamin family launch. It's opening this year. It could be very good, it could be underwhelming, but I think it's going to be better than Goliath, and that's a very low bar. Firehawk and Orion at Kings Island. You wouldn't think a Vekoma Flyer could match up to a B&M Giga, but these two are closer than you think. Orion is an upgrade, a 300-foot drop, a mile of track, but I had so much fun with Firehawk, I don't think the difference is top 15 worthy. Firehawk was taken out in 2018, and right away the park got to work, using that plot of land for the station of Orion. Alpine Bobsled and Bobcat at Six Flags Great Escape. The Bobsled was moved here in 1998, and it was a very good ride, running its course and being replaced by the Gravity Group wooden coaster Bobcat in 2024. Comparing the two coasters, I might even say Alpine Bobsled was a better coaster, but given the fact it was hardly ever open, having a fun, reliable ride in its place is in fact an upgrade. Last one, Laser Loop and Steel Phantom at Kennywood. Another Schwarzkopf shuttle loop. This was at the park from 1980 to 1990, taken out and replaced with the world's tallest and fastest coaster in 1991, Steel Phantom. This ride was kind of a mess, being way too fast for its own good, being a painful ride with 4 inversions, but this definitely got people's attention, and eventually was transformed to a standard hypercoaster by D.H. Morgan. Going strong today is Phantom's Revenge. Number 15, Cyclone and Apocalypse at Six Flags Magic Mountain. In 1991, when the Din Corporation was hot, Magic Mountain got them to build a replica of the Coney Island Cyclone, the same thing they did for Over Georgia the year prior. However, 3 years later, an earthquake caused major damage to Southern California, and apparently, Cyclone was never the same again. In 2006, they shut this down, cleared out the plot of land, and in 2009, a brand new modern wooden coaster would take its place. Terminator Salvation the Ride, a GCI twister, not GCI's best, but such a massive upgrade over Cyclone, especially in the state it was in by the end of its life. This is also one of the last wooden coasters Six Flags added, this coming in right before the chain went bankrupt. Number 14, Dragon Challenge and Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. When Dueling Dragons opened at Islands of Adventure in 1999, it was hard to beat. The pair of B&M Inverse were designed to duel, having a few near misses, and still managed to give a great forceful ride. Over time, people got hurt by flying objects and the ride stopped dueling. The Lost Continent section of the park became the Wizarding World, and as great as the ride once was, it was a shell of itself by 2017, and Universal shut it down. The ride's replacement had big shoes to fill, and we got a ride that wasn't as thrilling. It was more family friendly, but the $300 million Intamin launch coaster proved to be a worthy replacement. Well themed, 7 launches, a drop track, covering almost a mile. This may not have been a huge upgrade over the original Dueling Dragons, but I think it was a big upgrade over Dragon Challenge by the end of the ride's life cycle. Number 13, Thunder Express and Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood. Dollywood hasn't removed much, but for 10 seasons, they had a mine train in the back of the park, Thunder Express. This was relocated from Six Flags St. Louis, one of the 2 sides of River King Mine Train, covering 2,300 feet, maxing out at 37 miles an hour. In 1998, this was shut down, sold to Magic Springs, and you can still ride this to this day as Big Bad John. And they hired Arrow to replace their own coaster and build their final looping coaster in its place, Tennessee Tornado. This was way different from their previous loopers, this having big inversions, running smooth, very short but very sweet. It actually wasn't much longer than Thunder Express, but that 128-foot drop, 63 miles an hour top speed, 3 intense inversions, Tennessee Tornado is one of the best arrows out there. Number 12. Rolling Thunder and Raging Bull at Six Flags Great America. In 1989, Six Flags moved the Sarajevo Bobsled from Great Adventure to Great America, part of the ride rotation program, and it was set right next to Demon. This Intamin Swiss Bob has 1,500 feet of track, riding in a sled not attached to the track, and by 1995, it was time to be packed up and moved to its final park, the Great Escape. This area would be overhauled and become the Southwest Territory, and part of Rolling Thunder's land would be used for the park's signature coaster, construction starting in 1998, and Raging Bull being open to the public in 1999, showcasing B&M's brand new model, the Hypercoaster, having a 208-foot drop and almost a mile of track. Raging Bull is still one of B&M's best hypers. It's still one of the park's most popular coasters 26 years later, and although Rolling Thunder was a good ride, Raging Bull was a massive upgrade. Number 11. Boomerang and Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. After Knott's dispatched Corkscrew, the original modern inverting coaster being sold to Silverwood, they replaced it with another compact looper, a standard Vekoma Boomerang. This stood in the middle of the park for 27 years, having about 1 billion different color schemes, and by 2017, it had also run its course. Knott's hadn't gotten a new thrill coaster since 2004, and they were ready to use that Boomerang plot for their next one. They called Gerslau to install a custom infinity coaster, Hang Time, themed to surfing, 2,200 feet of twisted track and 5 inversions, also using the plot of Riptide next door. Hang Time may not be Gerslauer's best, but it was the perfect replacement for their old Boomerang. Number 10. Hercules and Hider the Revenge at Dorney Park. In 1989, Dorney Park hired the Din Corporation and they got a huge wooden coaster, being built on the side of a hill, right by the lake, only 95 feet tall but starting with a 151-foot drop, 65 miles an hour, 4,000 feet of track, and this may have been awesome in 1989, but by 2003 it earned the nickname Hurt Your Knees. In 2003, this was shut down. Unfortunately, no RMC back then, so that wasn't an option. So Cedar Fair and Dorney Park tore the coaster down and got to work on its replacement, a very wonky B&M Flores coaster called Hider the Revenge. This, of course, being one of the monsters that battles Hercules in Greek mythology. Hydra has 7 inversions, and everything about it is weird. From that slow JoJo roll at the station, the 105-foot straight drop, oddly shaped Cobra roll, out of order elements, and it really does work. This is one of the better B&M Flores coasters, taking the spot of a wooden coaster people couldn't stand anymore. Number 9. Green Lantern First Flight and Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain. In 2011, Magic Mountain found a tiny plot of land in Gotham City and built America's first intimate Zaxxon, Green Lantern First Flight. This was a miserable ride. For my money, the worst coaster of all time. More of a torture device than a roller coaster, having to limit the flipping to avoid the cars coming back to the station upside down. In 2017, the ride suddenly shut down. Rumor has it a lawsuit was filed. That would not surprise me one bit, and it was removed in 2019. This became the site of the park's 20th coaster, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, opening in 2022 and using Green Lantern Station. This would use a much larger plot of land, the park having to remove tidal wave also, but this couldn't exist if Green Lantern was still there. There is a major gap in quality here, but I'm not the biggest Wonder Woman fan, so it's gotta settle for number 9 in this list. Number 8. Invertigo and Railblazer at California's Great America. In 1998, Paramount gave Great America this rare inverted boomerang, using face-off seating, some seats facing forward, some backward, and not long after Cedar Fair acquired the park, they moved this to another one of their small properties, Dorney Park, that operated as Stinger for 6 seasons. This plot was left empty for 8 years, and honestly, the majority of the coaster's footprint is still empty, just a grassy plot of land, but I still say the official replacement of Invertigo was Railblazer, one of the original RMC Raptors. I don't hate the Vekoma Invertigos, they're very intense, but Railblazer is an elite ride, ripping around that course on a single rail, pacing out of this world, giving the park a coaster that's worth traveling for. Number 7. Disaster Transport and Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. In 1985, Cedar Point bought an Intamin Swiss Bob and called it Avalanche Run, but over time, they realized a bobsled coaster on the beach was not a good idea, the sand building up in the track, so they enclosed it and rethemed it, calling it Disaster Transport. It was like this from 1990 all the way to its closure in 2012. It wasn't a bad ride, but it didn't have a great reputation, and by 2012, it was definitely outdated. Cedar Point saw this as a great opportunity to renovate their main entrance, getting B&M to install their newest model, the Wing Coaster, starting over on the plot of Disaster Transport and stretching all the way over to the park gates, using 2 keyholes as near-miss elements, 4,200 feet of track and 6 inversions, starting with a 164-foot dive drop. Gatekeeper is a very fun ride, and it's become an icon of Cedar Point, a beautiful coaster replacing the ugly buildings enclosing Disaster Transport. Number 6. Son of Beast and Banshee at Kings Island. In 2000, when every park in the world was going crazy with wild coasters, Paramount and Kings Island went too far, building the first wooden coaster to go over 200 feet, and the first modern wooden coaster with a loop. They hired RCCA to get the job done, and pretty much right off the bat, the lawsuits started flying. Son of Beast suffered during its 10-season run, having a major incident in 2006, that resulting in new trains and the loop being removed. It was known as a rough ride, and once Cedar Fair took over, they shut this down, left it standing for a few years, and tore it down in 2012. This made way for the world's longest B&M invert, Banshee, and despite being over 4,100 feet long, it still doesn't come close to using all the land the 7,000 feet Son of Beast used. One of the rare new age B&M inverts, Banshee is a monster, 167 feet tall, 68 miles an hour, 7 inversions. One of the great inverts out there, a big upgrade over the headache machine known as Son of Beast. Number 5, Skyrider and Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland. Back in the 80s, Taft Broadcasting fell in love with the Togo stand-up. Kings Island got one, Kings Dominion got one, and Canada's Wonderland got one, Skyrider in 1985. This was the first new coaster since the park opened in 1981, and these didn't really stand the test of time. Canada's Wonderland has been around for 44 years, built 19 coasters, and only removed one. They determined that 30 years of Skyrider was enough. This shut down in 2014, and a few years later, this would be replaced by the world's tallest, longest, and loopiest B&M dive coaster, Yukon Striker, having an insane 245-foot drop into an underwater tunnel. This opened in 2019, a menacing presence in the middle of the park, and even though it's not my favorite dive coaster, it was a godsend compared to the old Togo stand-up. Number 4, Python and Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove. From 1996 to 2015, the star attraction of Playland's Castaway Cove was a looping Finfari Cyclone, this called Python. 1,200 feet long, 36 feet tall, and one tiny loop. This was an interesting ride, but it wasn't anything great. They sold this to CJ Barrymore's in Michigan and replaced it with a new type of coaster, the SNS LSM Triple Launch Coaster, Gale Force. This fit on the small Python plot, using a swing launch to get it up to 64 miles an hour. Not quite 1,300 feet of track, but sending riders around twice, using all kinds of crazy angles. Just a wild ride despite not going upside down. This was not built correctly at first. It had to be rebuilt after its first year, but it's been running great ever since, and gave Playland's Castaway Cove the best coaster on the Jersey Shore. Number 3, Iron Wolf and Goliath at Six Flags Great America. In 1990, Great America got the first ever B&M coaster, the company formed by Walter Bollinger and Claude Mabillard, having experience working for Giovanola, doing a lot of subcontracting for Intamin for their 1980s stand-up coasters. So, of course, the first coaster B&M built on their own was a stand-up coaster in the same fashion. It was called Iron Wolf, sitting in the back at Great America for 22 seasons. Six Flags wanted to upgrade this area of the park, sending this to Six Flags America, known as Apocalypse until it got floorless trains, now known as Firebird, and they got RMC's second ground-up wooden coaster, Goliath. The plot of land wasn't big, so RMC built this to wrap around its footprint, starting with a 180-foot drop into a tunnel, and something jarring to look at, 2 inversions on this wooden coaster. Goliath is not the strongest RMC, but it's a riot, and so much better than the OG B&M. Number 2, Windjammer and Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. For 21 seasons, this plot in the corner of Knott's was taken up by the Arrow Steeplechase, the wacky soapbox racers. The Knott family chose to remove this after the 1996 season, buying a Togo looping mouse to take its place, giving it 2 tracks to help capacity, and called it Windjammer Surf Racers. This ride was unreliable, shut down in a slight breeze, and on top of that, the ride was no good. I was lucky enough to ride this during its 4-year reign of terror, and it was very rough and had loads of headbanging. This was shut down in 2000. The park, now owned by Cedar Fair, quickly removed, and they called Intamin to build a launch coaster. This is where the hydraulic launch got its start, having all the power of an air launch without the noise. This is important for Knott's, being so close to homes and businesses. And we got one of the most insane launch coasters ever built, Accelerator. 0 to 80 miles an hour in 2.3 seconds, up and over a 205-foot top hat. Such a great ride on a tiny plot of land. Number 1, Viper and El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Here we have another Togo, this being their mega coaster model, this replacing another Togo, Ultra Twister, that was removed 7 years prior in 1988. 1995 marked the beginning of Viper, 1,700 feet long, 89 feet tall, 48 miles an hour, and 2 inversions, even having extra steel rings around it to make it look more like a snake. This has always been considered one of the worst coasters out there, and after 10 seasons, it was taken out, the station repurposed, and we got one of the most elite coasters ever built, the Intamin prefabricated wooden coaster, El Toro. Great Adventure took out a universally hated coaster and put in a coaster a lot of people would consider their overall number 1. 4,400 feet long, 181 feet tall, 70 miles an hour, and some of the most insane airtime moments ever. El Toro has had its problems over recent years, but it is elite, and this Adonis of a coaster just crushes the hot mess we used to know as Viper. That's a wrap on this video. Let me know what you think of my picks, and if you can think of any other good replacements, sound off in the comments below. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I want to thank my Patreons. If you want bonus access, bonus content, and have your name listed at the end of each video, check my links below and join. Also, check out my second channel, where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.